Okay, so this is Dale Larson, and he is a member of the Cascade, and you're also on the board? Was on the board of AAW. He is our contact and has been a lot of the coordination for the symposium coming up in June. And I'll let him tell you any more about him he wants to say.
First, I want to thank Jamie and Larry for inviting me up here. I think this is my 4th time up over the last 20-some years to come up to the Bremerton chapter. This is my 40th year of wood turning, and mostly I turn wood bowls. I am going to talk about AAW Symposium for just a short minute because I am the local liaison, and I've been involved in every symposium since '07. And if you come to Portland and don't have a good time, I'm going to be responsible, so I take that seriously. Just a couple of things. First of all, it will never be closer. They actually looked at Tacoma instead of Portland for this time. It's about 3 years out. I wanted Tacoma because I would have had a lot less work, but the Tacoma site was too small. We were there in 1999. That site is way too small now. Just a couple of things. One, I really encourage you to go online and sign up to volunteer for something. Assisting in a room, especially the youth room. Go in there, we have 25 lays set up for the kids. We need 12 helpers per rotation, so each helper has 2 kids. There's a benefit to you to volunteering. As soon as you start teaching somebody else how to turn, you become a better turner because you have to explain why you do something. So, and step up. If you don't get the next generation hooked, in 15 years, everybody here is going to be dead anyway. So you better have another generation. The vendor show. They had to increase the size of the vendor show. I know Jimmy's going to be there, Dave's going to be there, but there will be probably 10 different lays. Take your checkbook, leave the wife home. And so it's one of the best parts of the show, the instant gallery, and then some of the demonstrators. How many people in here have seen Ellie? We brought Ellie up here a few years ago. Ellie Avicera is one of the best demonstrators in the world. He'll be there. Hans Weissfog from Germany. I can't do any of his work. I love his work. He is one of the best demonstrators. Julia Makalungo from Australia. Wonderful people. And so it will never be closer. It only comes out to the West Coast about once every 5 years. So spend your $300. Take your checkbook. Every year we do a raffle, the painted lay. They sent the pictures up. Did you get the pictures?
It's on the website.
It's on the website. It is beautiful. It's sitting in my shop. Tickets will be $5 a piece for a brand new 3520C Powermatic, and it's absolutely beautiful. John Jordan. I've known John for over 20 years. He is probably the best demonstrator I have ever seen. If you don't take this chance to see him while he's up here, he's from Tennessee. He is one of the great wood teachers and wood knowledge people of the world. And I can't stress how much you need to see this guy. I've learned more from him about demonstrating than anybody. So really take your chance to go see John Jordan. I'm here to talk about oval turning tonight. I actually brought the oval turning, and if we couldn't get it to work because this is a different lathe than I have, I actually had a bowl turn if we were going to do that. But we actually finally got it hooked up to this lathe and it's working, so I'm going to do an oval. What I can't do, if I'm doing a bowl demo, I can turn a whole bowl in a class and we're good. It takes about 4.5 hours to completely turn an oval. So I'm going to pass an oval bowl around. Normally when I turn a piece, like turn a bowl, we raffle it off during the class and somebody in here gets it for $1. I can't finish an oval. This is just going to be scrap wood when I get done with it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to donate this oval. Tickets are going to go around. If you want to pay a ticket, $1 a piece, $2, 2 tickets, take a ticket. And at the end of the period, we're going to pull a ticket and the winner gets this oval, all right? And so we're going to start that around. If you want to play, play. If you don't, that's fine. I was on the board of the AEW for 6 years. Who in here, who's the new member? I saw somebody over here was a new member. Have an AEW journal. The second raffle ticket gets a Pittsburgh AEW t-shirt. I asked the office if they had any Portland t-shirts. They don't have them yet. So the number 2 ticket gets a t-shirt. Extra packet prize. Oval turning. Oval turning has been around for many hundreds of years. Most of you probably have oval picture frames in your house with old family pictures. You don't see it much anymore. All of those are turned on an oval lathe. It's been around for I don't know how many hundreds of years. The old chucks are all wood, but they all work on the same principle. And if you want to see, I don't know if Mr. Vollmer's stuff's still online.
It is.
Is it? So this chuck was designed by a guy named Vollmer, V-O-L-M-E-R, in Germany. He died about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And if you stick Vollmer oval chuck in the computer, you'll see some short slideshow or videos. When I first got it about 8, 9 years ago, I started turning it out of solid blocks of wood. That's really a stupid way to do it. And I go do it the same way I turn my regular bowls. I rough out a piece of wood while it's wet, while the turning is really nice. I have to leave a tenon on the inside because when this is done, I have to be able to grab it by this tenon to turn the outside, grab it by this tenon to turn the inside, flip it over and I'll show you, and then I oval turn the bottom. If you look at the bottom of this bowl, don't dump the money out. The bottom of that bowl is oval turned. I oval turn the bottom. And so that's the sequence. But this is a piece of walnut. Grains running this way. You can see the master line on it. And you'll see the master line on the one I turned tonight. I'll talk about why that's important. I roughed this out. I waxed it. Just got paste wax on the end grain. And this was roughed out 11/27 to 12. M. Larsen, Mike Larsen, a guy I used to work with in the police department. It's his tree. And so this is dried. There's no cracks in it. It's ready to go on the lathe and turn now. So I'll pass this around. This is a roughed out lathe. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm just going to turn a piece of wet wood, go through all the steps, and then we're going to chuck it because I can do that in about an hour. I can't spend 4.5 hours doing a finished oval. And it'd be really, really boring. So I'm going to, and if you have any questions as I go along, fire them at me. And I'll try to answer them if I can. Any questions before I start here? All right. I want to show you the action of this lathe. This is going to be kind of hard to wrap your brain around. We're going to go to this camera. And we'll close it a little bit. The wood is actually not going around. This is screwed onto the headstock here. It takes 2 revolutions of this lathe to make 1 revolution of this oval chuck. At 9 o'clock, what I call 9 o'clock, the Germans who are more precise call the point of tranquility, is the only place I can touch this. On a bowl, I can touch it anywhere around because it's round. Here I can only work right at 9 o'clock. And the wood is it's not going around. It is going in this angle, or it's coming in this angle, and you're not going to see it on this. I asked Jamie to give me this piece of wood because I'm going to use a pencil, and I'm going to show you the action. And there is no center on an oval. There is a center line on an oval. This can be set from anywhere from round, which would be 0, up to 30 offset. This is all in metric. And 30 offset is about 4 and 5 inches longer than wide. Right now I've got it set at 25 offset. That's roughly 4 inches longer than wide. That means that what I'm going to have here in the center is a line about 4 inches long. At center, the wood is going straight up and down. It is not going around. And you're going to see that in just a minute. The further away from center I get, the more normal the turning. And the outside turning is pretty normal. The inside turning is not normal at all. These chucks are designed to turn parallel to the face of the lathe. They were designed for picture frames, mirror frames, stuff like that, all parallel to the face. I want to do bowls. I have to make cuts perpendicular to the face of the chuck, and that is very difficult. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you the action of this lathe. And I'm going to turn it on slow, because we don't need a lot of speed here. I'm going to start out here. I'm going to put a series. I just broke my pencil. Oh. Always have a second pencil. I'll just do a series of lines here. And we're going to see how good I can get if I can hit center. Sometimes I can hit center. There's center. So out here, every one of these is 4 inches longer than wide. So out here, it's closer to round. If we went even bigger, it would be closer to round. As you get into center, it gets really radical. I can tell you about the time I get into here, turning on the inside the oval, the wood action is really radical. It's almost going vertical, straight up and down. And at center, it is literally going straight up and down. It is not going around. So it causes you problems in more ways than one. So anybody have how this moves? Yes. He pointed out a good point. Part of when I rough out, now this is where it's going to get expensive, and good thing your wife's not here. You really need 2 lathes to turn ovals, because you have to switch from oval to round and back and forth. So I actually have my bowl lathe set up off to the side that turns just round. And then I have this set up on my one way on my spindle lathe, and I go back and forth. So it's much easier to turn round than it is to turn oval. So when I'm running, I actually take it over to the round lathe, with the round lathe, because it's much easier, and I turn that tenon. Then I go back over to my oval chuck, and I just have to turn the ends. So I hate to tell you, you have to have a second lathe. How do I cut my blanks? Good question. So I'll just put it right here. Yeah, here we go. Oops, where are we going? This, okay. Okay, so all I've done is, here's my center line. See this black line right here in the middle? That's called the master line. I have that on both sides. And what I've done is, this is roughly 10 by 14, all right? I hope that fits on here. I have one smaller if it doesn't. And so all I've done is I've drawn a rectangle 12 or 10 by 14 long. I always have the grain running this way. I tried one with the grain running crossways and it's not good. Then all I do is take my calipers and bandsaw the ends round, all right? Draw it with the calipers, take it over the bandsaw it round. On something like this, I could, if I wanted to, put it on the lathe, turn the label, it's set at the 25 offset, and take a pencil and mark it, and I can tell you what the pencil, here, actually, oval is going to take off these 4 corners. You could then take it back off, take it over the bandsaw, and bandsaw it oval. It's not oval now, but it's actually close enough with wet wood. So I could take it back to the bandsaw. I don't have a bandsaw here. This stuff turns, this is wet wood. I just cut out a tree a couple weeks ago. So, but anyway, we take it off there. ZS is the sequence. And then I take my block of wood. On the bottom, I put a tenon that I can grab it with, and I use the number 3 talon. You want a little bit bigger because this is wet wood, so you can snap it off. You know, wet wood's not that strong. On the top, I've got this inset. And so now this is ready to go on the oval chuck. Okay? So this piece of wood's ready to go. Any questions on wood movement? All right. All right, so I'm going to start by the outside, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go through all the steps here. I'll tell you what I would do different if I was doing a finished turn, all right? If I was doing finished turn, I would grab it. I would return both the bottom tenon and the tenon inside so they're both true after they've dried up, because they will dry oblong, of course. Screw them up, mount it this way. That's why I've got a tenon on the inside. But first of all, you have to set the chuck. I have to set the chuck at 9 o'clock. So 9 o'clock, let's see if we can, I would like this one here. It's straight up and down. So, I actually have a different deal at home, but I didn't know if it would fit this lathe. I didn't know what the bed gap was on the Nova. All right. So I've set my master at 12 to 6. That line goes clear around. And I guess the thing with oval turning, I'm going to see if I got this in here good, is sometimes you have to be exact, and sometimes you can get away with being close. And you just have to kind of learn when those things happen. All right. Always close this. And always, always, always with ovals, rotate it, make sure it'll clear. I got to make, hey, it's going to clear, all right. Well, that wasn't a given, so. All right. I'm going to turn the outside kind of like a normal bowl. I'm going to start at the bottom and go to the top. All the cuts are going to be from bottom to top. Going this way is the wrong way. You'll end up with a lot of tear out. And so, when I rough out, I use a face shield. I point out that OSHA is not in your shop. You have to be the safety inspector in your shop. If you don't follow safe practices, you will pay the price. I won't, you will. Go ahead.
In your shop at home, do you use a laser line generator so you can stay on the tranquility point?
The question is, do I use a laser line? And the answer is no, because I know I can see it. You can see 9 o'clock, and I'll show you that here in a minute. Yes? Yeah, you actually can see where 9 o'clock, the point of tranquility, is. You don't need a laser light. So, the problem you have is this wood is not coming around smooth. It's either coming in at this angle or this angle, and that creates an X in the shadow, and we'll be able to see that here in a minute. And that's 9 o'clock. If you turn above or below that line, it immediately starts bouncing. So you have to turn at 9 o'clock. And I wear a leather glove on my left hand when I'm roughing out, because I might rough out 8 or 10 of these in a day. And that's a lot of abuse on the side of my hand. So when I rough out, I wear a glove on my left hand. Dave Schweitzer's tools. I like Dave Schweitzer's stuff. This is the 5/8 bowl gouge. And like I said, all the cuts are going to be this way. And I'll turn for a bit, and then we'll show you the action. So now we want to be on that camera there. Okay. Whatever's happening up here, I don't. The chuck has counterbalance weights in it. It doesn't cause my one way to vibrate. This is a lightweight lathe on wheels, and so we're getting some vibration, which I would not get on a regular lathe. Start off the wood. Hang on just a second. Never move the tool rest on a lathe running. The advantage of taking it back to the bandsaw is I wouldn't have this big bump over here. It'd been a little easier to turn. But you can see, if this was a piece of dry wood, you wouldn't be getting all these really nice big chips, you know. And at this point, I'm just going to check. So it's not actually running. I'm going to check and see if I've got it running. My oval is not matching up with my master line, so it may have moved on the chuck. Hang on. Sometimes it slips on the chuck. It did slipped on the chuck. The one thing I found out about oval turning is there's a lot of piddling in it. It's not like just sticking a piece of wood on close enough. I should have noticed that earlier. What's that? Nah, it's going to be oval when I get done with it. Trust me. The design work, I don't know how many of you saw that black walnut oval back there. It was cut out of the crotch. That's my favorite pattern, where I put the feather right down the middle of the oval. So, if you don't cut it out of the tree right, I do a class on how to cut the bowl out of the tree. I think I've showed that slideshow up here. If you don't cut it out of the tree right, it'll never be right. All right, better. I'm going to kick the speed up just a little bit if I can. Same way I would rough out the outside of a wet bowl. Hang on, my tool rest is moving. So your first lathe, for you new guys, the first lathe that you buy will be the cheapest lathe you ever. Always get it more expensive. My first lathe cost $212. It was a Craftsman. Bought it in 1978. I bought their set of 12 turning tools for $115, and I was in the turning business. My two one-ways cost a little bit more than that. And then I have my bowl lathe is my Denver Ulrey. I bought a lathe from Denver Ulrey back in about 1990, 1991. What a wonderful guy. He was the heart and soul of the Seattle chapter. He was the first guy that figured out electronic variable speed lathes. Now everybody copies his electronics. But before Denver, all of the variable speeds were either Reeves belt drives or something, or the electric ones they had just cut down on the electricity, and then you lost all your torque. And the torque thing. So, what a wonderful guy, just a really generous guy. I bought one of his lathes, and regretted it. All right, I'm going to turn the outside. I've got it. I call it round. I've got it smooth here. I'm going to come in on this end, because if you cut unsupported cut, and you'll bust. So I never go off this edge. I always come in on it. Just for fun, I'm going to go off that edge and show you, for those of you that think I'm a fisherman. we'll see how. Not too bad. Right here you can see the fur. That's from an unsupported cut coming off that edge. So you never want to come off that edge. So now I'm going to go the right way. Now I'll have a nice clean edge up here. The edge is clean. Not flat because this is just chainsawed on the top, but there's no tear out up here on the top because I came in this way. If you go this way, you have tear out, and you can take a big chunk out of it. So don't do that. Okay. One of the things I forgot was my pipe clamp on this here. Because if you change the height of your tool rest, you change your oval. Dale should have done this earlier. So the pipe clamp, just so when I move it around, so whatever I set this pipe clamp for is going to be oval. But then it'll stay there. If you change the height, you change your oval. There's a whole bunch of ways you can change. You actually can move the chuck. We're almost down to round, or oval, or whatever you want to say. I'm riding the bevel here, something that I won't be able to do on the inside. One more cut. All right. I go back. Now I'm going to get the shape, outside shape the way I want it. But now I can move my tool rest and it stays at the same height. I should have put the pipe clamp on there first. Now, let's see, can we drop this camera down so it's shooting straight on here? I don't know if you're going to be able to pick it up on the camera, but right there is X. There's a shadow point. And so see my pencil is running smooth there. If I move my pencil up here, it starts bouncing. But right at 9 o'clock, point of tranquility, it's smooth. Above, below it, you can see, now back out. Over here, the wood is 4 inches out around. So the chuck is manipulating the wood so that right at 9 o'clock it stays smooth. So I have to turn right at 9 o'clock. Is on that? I'm going to switch over to the 1/2-inch gouge. It takes a little smaller bite for my last cuts. Even when I'm roughing out, I like to leave it with a pretty nice cut. It just takes less wax on the end grain. So this guy dies, and they're having the funeral for him. And the local priest decides to go and give his condolences. And he goes there and goes up to the widow and says, "I'm sorry for your loss. Just thank you for coming, Father." And the priest says, "Did your husband have any last requests?"
And the lady says, yes, in fact he did. And the priest says, well, what was his last request? The lady said, well, he did ask me to put the gun down. So there's quite a bit of tear out on this piece of wood. This is just English walnut sapwood, which I normally would not turn. And you can see some of the tear out, but that really doesn't matter because when this is dry, it's cut clean on the end grain. I always leave a flat up here because it's going to warp like a regular bowl. So there's no use turning it round right up to the top. The outside is done. We're now going to flip it around. Now you're going to go over to your round lathe.